meeting will come to order. Roll call, please.
Councilors Aguilar,
Here.
Anderson,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Entenmann,
Here.
Erpenbach,
Here.
Jameson,
Here.
Litz,
Here.
Rolfing.
Yes. Here.
Normally, we would have everybody rise for the blessing. Tonight, we are being led by Pastor John Christopherson from First Lutheran Church. So honored to have you here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor.
What he has asked is if we would just stay seated for the blessing, and then we will rise for the pledge of the allegiance. Please, Pastor John.
Some 57 years ago, just south of here, about a block and a half, my predecessor and spiritual mentor, Dr. Al Rognes, wrote a free verse poem that I'd like to share with you this evening that I pray will wing its way into your hearts again this night as it did for Sioux Falls folk, now nearly 70 back. Close your eyes and image this story with me. In the foothills of the Montana Rockies, a little stream is born. It trickles its fitful path down the hillside and makes its way out into the open plains. Growing broader and deeper, much like our lives, it becomes a river, the Missouri. Montana says, "Oh, little river, you're mine," but declining to be cradled by its parent state, on it flows. It makes its way now between the sister Dakotas, and North and South Dakota each say, "Oh, little river, you're ours." But again, it moves on heedlessly, angling now between the neighboring states of Iowa and Nebraska, each of them saying, "You're mine." But like a quivering blade of grass in the June breezes, it makes its way now, joining with the waters of the mighty Mississippi. And the Mississippi says, "Oh, little river, you're finally mine." But again, no, heedlessly, growing broader and deeper and slower, much again like our lives. It flows on until it empties out into the Gulf of Mexico. And as it enters into the Gulf of Mexico, it hears the ocean's whispering voice saying, "Little river, you're mine." For you see, it was I who sent those rain clouds up into the Montana Rockies that gave you birth. And it was I who gently, slowly, beyond all earthly claim, drew you back to myself. From me you came, to me you return. Only I can truly say, "You're mine." Well, God, we thank you for this precious claiming word for all people, red, yellow, black, and white, all precious in your sight. We thank you for the boldness, the steady compassion and integrity of our former mayor, Dave Munson. And we now pray your blessing upon our new mayor, Mike Huther. Thankful for his creative energy and vision for the uncommon good of our city. A city not simply as a collection of individuals, but as a community of neighbors. We ask your blessing and wisdom for all of your civil servants here in Sioux Falls who seek to do what is just, what is good, what is needful for commerce as well as social service in public office and various vocations. Bless now this meeting, these city councilors, as this claiming word that we are your people, all your people, continues to work through us and around the world. For Greg Jameson and Sue Aguilar, Kenny Anderson and Vernon Brown, for James Entenmann and Michelle Erpenbach, for Bob Litz and Rex Rolfing, and all of us as neighbors, friends, and family of this great city called Sioux Falls. Amen.
If everyone would please rise, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to have you here. I have my first proclamation as mayor for me, and I'm so honored to do it. If Clara Hart, if you wouldn't mind, come up and bring up anybody else that you'd like, please. Please. First of all, welcome. Whereas every year on June 20th, the world honors the courage, resilience, and strength of refugees. On the 8th anniversary of the United Nations designated World Refugee Day, thousands of organizations and hundreds of countries will come together to focus global attention not only on the plight of refugees and the causes of their exile, but also on their determination and will to survive, and on the contributions they make to their host communities. Whereas refugees flee their country not for economic gain, but to escape persecution, the threat of imprisonment, and even threats to their lives. They need a safe haven where they can recover from mental and physical trauma and rebuild their hopes for a better future. Whereas the global theme for World Refugee Day is home, in recognition of the plight of more than 400 million uprooted people around the world, where approximately 10 million of them are indeed refugees. Whereas protection also means that refugees receive food, shelter, and medical care, that their rights are respected, including rights to education and freedom of movement. Now, therefore I, Mike Huther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim Sunday, June 20th as World Refugee Day in Sioux Falls, and let us recognize them for the richness and diversity they bring to our community. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move, Anderson.
Second, Jameson.
It has been moved by Councilor Anderson and seconded by Councilor Jameson. Are there any further motions or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please vote yes, and those opposed, vote no.
Councilors Brown,
Yes.
Entman,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
That motion has prevailed 8-0. The consent agenda has indeed been approved. Is there a motion to approve the regular agenda?
So moved, Brown. Second, Entman.
It has been moved by Councilor Brown, seconded by Councilor Entenmann. Are there any further motions or changes to the regular agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the regular agenda, please vote yes, and those opposed, vote no.
Councilors Brown,
Yes.
Entman,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
That motion also prevailed 8-0. The regular agenda has been approved. Folks, I'd like to welcome all of you to this meeting of government, of city government. It's so wonderful to have such an enormous crowd for city government. I This is a time that we normally set aside for anybody to come up and speak about something that is of interest to you that is not on the regular agenda. And the reason we state that is that we're going to get to the regular agenda at some point, and you'll certainly have an opportunity to speak. But if there's something else that you want to talk about, please just come to the podium, state your name.
My name is Charles Santee. I'm a city resident. In early May, the City Council passed a resolution which implemented some different rates for bus passes, like senior bus pass for the month would be half price. The bus company has yet to implement this ordinance. They claim that it's only supposed to be implemented when the new fare boxes come in, but the ordinance did not have any fine print in it. And as any parent with young kids know, Christmas is coming.
Mr. Santee, thank you. At the meeting held last week, the public forum to talk about transit here in Sioux Falls, did this topic come up there as well?
No.
It did not.
I did bring it up at a PTAB meeting. That's where I was told it was only going to go into effect when the new fare boxes came in.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Councilors, any questions? Ms. Santee, again, thank you so much for making the effort to attend. Mike Cooper, of course, is here, who is in charge of the department that actually will address that. You know it is a hot topic for me, public transportation, as well as a number of the good people up here. We are listening, we are learning, and we'll do our best to try to make a difference for you. Thank you. Anyone else on any topic?
Mayor?
Yes.
Mike, could you also speak to Mr. Santee about a couple other issues he had with transit that he spoke to me about earlier? Thank you.
Any other topics at all? Very good. Well, we will proceed. And at this time, I think Councilor Urbanbach is going to leave. The reason she's going to leave is that she believes that the next topic that we're going to talk about is something that, if she stays, it's probably not the most appropriate. We'll get into it here a little bit. And what we're going to talk about is a petition. Is it Ms. Cooper comes up? Item number 3.
Postpone definitely from June 7, 2010 meeting, conditional use permit appeal 2010-0406, northwest corner of West 85th Street and South Minnesota Avenue. The conditional use permit was to construct an assisted living facility, approved at the May 5, 2010 Planning Commission meeting with a vote of 4 yes, 1 no.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve the conditional use permit appeal?
So moved. Rolfing.
Second, Aguilar.
The motion to approve has been made by Councilor Rolfing and then seconded by Councilor Aguilar. Mr. Cooper?
Good evening, Mike Cooper, representing Planning and Building Services. And just so the neighbors don't have a heart attack, there will be discussion on this motion before a final vote is taken. First of all, I would like to thank both the neighborhood that's being considered for this appeal tonight, as well as the applicant that's asking for approval of this request. I've had a chance to meet on numerous occasions with both parties, and we've had some lively discussions and back and forth about concerns and issues. And my goal tonight is to present you with all of those issues and concerns and some at least suggestions as to how they might be addressed. First of all, we are considering tonight an appeal of a City Planning Commission action on a conditional use permit. Based on our zoning ordinance procedures, conditional uses are items that go to Planning Commission through a public hearing, and unless there is an appeal, that would be the final decision-making authority. At the May meeting, the Planning Commission did consider a request for a conditional use permit. The applicant is both Paul Haig and Steve Westra, representing Esprit of Sioux Falls. The request is to construct a memory care residential living facility on approximately 4 acres of land. The proposed site, if we go back a few slides, one more. The proposed site would be west of Minnesota Avenue and north of future extension of 81st Street. And then it would touch on Audie Avenue in the southwest corner. The land is currently part of a tree farm as part of the landscape garden center. To the north is residential, along with a drainage area. To the west is existing single-family residential. On the south is vacant land, which has been zoned for future twin homes and multifamily. And then to the east is also part of the landscape garden center facility. This slide shows the zoning that has been approved for this particular area. The light yellow allows RS2 zoning, which is primarily single-family, and I'll talk a little bit more at the end of my comments about the zoning process. The light tan provides for twin homes or single-family, and the darker brown is for multifamily residential. The silver or gray areas on the right side of this exhibit would be for future office or retail development. So the area that we're considering tonight for the conditional use is outlined in the black line, which is that 4-acre parcel. As part of the discussion at the Planning Commission, there was a lot of neighborhood input with concerns about this proposed use, which is why, obviously, it has been appealed before the City Council tonight. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2-phase residential care facility that would be for Alzheimer's patients. The first phase on the south side of the property would include 48 rooms with 56 beds, and then a future phase 2 to the north would be a similar mirrored image of that with additional 48 rooms and 56 beds. As the discussion went through the Planning Commission, there were a number of considerations made as far as what impact this would have to the residential properties on the west side. There was a lot of discussion about the setback of the building, the screening, the traffic, and as part of the Planning Commission recommendation of a 4-to-1 vote, the applicant at that time did agree to a 25-foot setback as well as a landscape plan that was presented to the City Planning Commission. The applicant is showing a 1-level building with pitched roof, and through our zoning requirements, there is a maximum height of 35 feet, so there would not be the ability for this to become a 2-story or multi-level facility. That was another issue that was raised by the neighborhood. As I had a chance to sit down and work through some of the issues and concerns on both the residential neighborhood side as well as addressing some of the responses by the developer applicant, just this morning we were able to put together a memo kind of summarizing some of the information that we had put together that we were asked to research, and again, some of the recommendations that we present to you, the City Council. And if we can continue, the landscape plan has gone through a number of changes, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the list of issues that have been brought up by the neighborhood. And if we could go to the summary of the conditional use permit, and I'll come back to these. We're going to go back a couple of slides, but let's go to the recommendation slide, because I want to go through these. The applicant has agreed to provide now a 30-foot setback along the west property line. The zoning ordinance requirement for this particular use, which is defined as an assisted living facility, is 15 feet. And as we said at the Planning Commission, it was shown that they could go to 25, and through further discussions now, they've developed a plan of 30 feet. And I think when the applicant has a chance to get up, they can maybe reinforce how they came up with that, because we did talk about everything from changing the footprint of the building, flipping it, changing the number of rooms, the floor plan. All of those issues were considered by the applicant at the request of the neighborhood. They are showing a 30-foot setback of 2 wings, the closest wings of the building to the neighborhood, and those 2 wings would be approximately 64 feet in width. The balance of the building will be over 100 feet from the adjoining property to the west. The second item, which we talked a lot about, is the landscape screen. Originally, there was talk about trying to preserve an existing row of autumn blaze maples along that west property line. And so the original landscape plan showed preserving those deciduous trees. And after further discussions with the neighborhood, there was more of a push to have a double row of evergreens planted in a staggered pattern to create more of a visual screen between the back of the residential properties and the assisted living center. We were asked also to look at a third-party opinion about whether or not a landscape screen could adequately be provided within a 30-foot yard. And again, on Friday of last week, we contacted a local firm called Confluence. They are a landscape architecture firm here in Sioux Falls. They do a lot of commercial as well as other building projects in the city of Sioux Falls. And we just asked them, how would you propose showing a 30-foot landscape berm, or landscape setback within a setback that would adequately screen? They do not have any financial interest in this property. We did not pay them for this opinion. They voluntarily provided this to us. And what they're showing on this slide is that there would be a double row of either Colorado blue spruce or Black Hill spruce that would be spaced adequately to provide a visual barrier at maturity and that would not overhang onto the adjoining residential property. That was a big concern of the neighborhood as well. There was also discussions about a berm. We did not research that. We said that to the neighborhood, that has been talked about in the past. In discussing that with the applicant, they were concerned about what impact it would have on drainage concerns on the residential side of the property. But we did not, as city staff, spend or research any more time as far as a berm and what impact that would have on a drainage. As part of any construction project, when they submit their plans for a building permit, they do go through a more extensive review by city engineering of their drainage plans. So as proposed tonight, the applicant is showing a revised landscaping plan again that will have a double row of staggered evergreen trees along the entire west property line, and they have agreed to install that landscaping along the property line in both Phase 1 and Phase 2 areas with the initial approval of their project. Number 3 that we spent a lot of time talking about was a temporary construction access road. The applicant is showing on their plan that with 81st Street, it would be a temporary cul-de-sac off Audie Avenue until such time as that street is extended to the east over to Minnesota Avenue. The neighborhood had a lot of concerns, not only about traffic from the development, but particularly traffic during the construction phase. Based on my discussions with the applicant, I believe that the intent would be to begin construction later this fall and have it open by the end of 2011. So there'd be about a 1-year timeline or less of the construction period. Late Friday afternoon, in my discussions with the developer representative, which is Dan Lemmy with Harlemy, and his discussions with the owners of the property, which is TreeCom, they did agree that they would provide, on behalf of the applicant, a temporary access off of Minnesota Avenue for construction vehicles. And so that is in one of our recommended stipulations that you see on the list as well. We also talked about, can you give us a timeline for the actual construction of 81st Street all the way to Minnesota Avenue? And the information that they gave us was that by 2012, it's their goal to have 81st Street done all the way through to Minnesota Avenue. Part of the consideration of getting that done is that they're looking at, obviously, the market of additional development between the assisted living and Minnesota Avenue that would drive that road construction. But as it sits now, their goal is to have the street done by 2012. But again, they did commit that a construction access would be provided as part of this project, and so that's what we have up there as far as number 3. Number 4 essentially says that if Phase 1 is allowed to begin now with 81st Street as a temporary cul-de-sac, that until such time as 81st Street is constructed all the way to Minnesota Avenue, that Phase 2 would not begin. And that's what this proposed recommendation, number 4, is trying to address. Another area that we talked a lot about with the neighborhood and with the developer, with the applicant, I should say, is the lighting plan for the parking lot and for the building exterior, and screening of the parking lot from the residential property to the west and to the south. If we go back to their site plan, within that parking lot area on the south side of Phase 1, they're showing that there would be 4 parking lot lights that would be constructed, and that on the exterior of the building, with the exception of emergency exits and entrances, there would be no other exterior lighting on the building. The city has some very comprehensive lighting requirements. There's a photometric plan that needs to be submitted by developers, by applicants, as part of their building permit approval. Any light that's proposed, any lighting that's proposed that's going to be adjacent to residential uses cannot exceed 3-foot candles at the property line. And the preliminary lighting plan that we've been able to look at by the applicant either meets or will exceed those lighting standards. So they've done a good job, I think, of trying to minimize the potential impact and actually trying to exceed our lighting requirements that we would have for this type of development. The parking lot screening is another requirement that we would put in here as a stipulation. On the south side of this development and to the west, because it is zoned for residential use, there is a requirement that this parking lot would have to be screened, which is typically a 4-foot-high landscape feature that would, again, screen the parking lot from view of this area. So that's a standard requirement that we have, but we thought we would put it in here just to reinforce to everybody that's something that would have to be addressed. Again, I want to reinforce a couple of things. That the maximum height that would be allowed is 35 feet, so there would not be an opportunity for this to become a multi-story building. The 2 things that we were asked to look at, in addition to what you see up here, as I mentioned, the berming, and then also there was a question about, on the east side of the property is an existing drainage channel. It's kind of hard to see on this aerial photo, but just to the east of this property line is an existing drainage way. That drainage channel is a private drainage way. It's not under the authority of the Corps of Engineers. But as part of any drainage area, they typically need to provide for the 100-year drainage flow of a development area. And that's reviewed again by city engineering staff at the time that building permits are requested. As part of this overall development, in addition to the assisted living, the size and the capacity of that drainage way would be analyzed by city engineering staff. But the goal is to maintain those existing drainage ways whenever we can, and the developer, the applicant, I should say, of the Esprit has gone through the process of having soil borings done. As they get closer to that drainage channel, the soil conditions are wetter, the water table is higher, and so it becomes much more difficult to build as you get closer to that drainage channel. And that's very typical that if you go around Sioux Falls on the drainage ways, you'll see that they typically have, if they're residential, the backyard will abut up against the drainage way rather than putting the house right next to them. And so that's very similar to what is being proposed with this development here tonight. But we did not go through and analyze the engineering report that the developer or the applicant has put together. As I said at the beginning, we've tried to, through sitting down with both parties, get a better understanding of what the concerns and issues are and what the applicant might try to do to address those issues and concerns. The neighborhood, I think, has done a good job of trying to identify what their concerns are. I think the applicant has tried to address as many of those as they can. One of the other questions that came up is, why is this land use even allowed to be considered? And so I wanted to show you on this chart that under the RS2 residential zoning, which is what this property was recently zoned a few months ago, the primary permitted uses would be single-family residential. But within all of our zoning districts, we have another category of land uses which are called conditional uses. And this is an example of the types of conditional uses that anyone can apply for within a RS2 residential district. A private lake, a group home, a nursing home, dwellings for members of religious orders, twin homes, assisted living, daycare, public utility facilities, and bed and breakfast establishments. So we have developed this list of conditional uses over the years based on historically what we believe can be compatible to single-family residential. But again, it's not an automatic approval. They have to go through the public hearing process. And as part of that public hearing process, either the Planning Commission or, in this case, the City Council can place stipulations or conditions on approval of these particular land uses. I know that there's been a lot of questions by the neighborhood of why back in February that it was shown as single-family lots and now it's being proposed for the assisted living. This has been done in other places throughout the city. We are currently working on an update of our zoning ordinance, and this is something that we can certainly look at in the future as far as what type of transitional uses make sense in residential zoning districts. But I just wanted to show everybody that this is not something that just came up at the last minute, that we do have all of these type of uses that property owners can apply for through the public hearing process. I believe that those are the primary issues, concerns that I intended to address tonight. Again, I appreciate the willingness of both the neighborhood and the developer applicant to sit down and talk about this. I know from experience that these types of land use issues can get very emotional when we're talking about people's investment in their homes, when we talk about an applicant that wants to make a major investment in a use that they believe very passionately about, that can we make everybody walk away somewhat satisfied that it's going to work for everybody? And again, I know from experience in dealing with these land use issues in other parts of the city, that initially we try to go through every potential concern or issue that people can imagine. And as we get through the process of making a decision by either the council or the planning commission, and then we implement those decisions, then I can tell you that more often than not, people are typically pretty happy with the final outcome. So I think I will stop there. If you have questions for me, I know there are people here tonight representing the neighborhood as well as the applicant that may want to comment on what I presented to you tonight.
Councilor Jameson.
Mike, could you talk about the follow-up procedure when you recommend these conditional uses of, or these recommendations about not starting the second phase until that road is paved and/or that the lighting is appropriate as designed? How do they follow up? Who follows up, and what's that practice?
The planning and building services staff is responsible for monitoring any stipulations that are put on a conditional use. We would do that through the permitting process initially, and we would do that through the occupancy permit process, which is towards the end of the process. And then prior to any future building permits that might come with Phase 2, we would also be able to address that. So we would be kind of the guardians on behalf of both the neighborhood and the applicant and the city council to make sure that these stipulations or any others that you suggest would be enforced. Also, people can file complaints, and we would follow up with any complaints or requests by adjoining property owners to follow up on any investigation.
Councilor Aguilar.
So, Mike, does that mean that where you say in number 2 that they install and maintain the trees, if one of the trees were to die or whatever, that then they would be expected to replace that tree?
Yes.
And you also, did I understand you right, that it's a private drainage way, that it is not owned by the Army Corps?
That's correct.
And who would the owner be then? The landowners?
Yes,
or?
and the landowner owns it, but again, the city engineering staff would be looking at making sure that that meets the requirements of the 100-year drainage for any future development.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Entman.
And Mr. Mayor, if you remember when we heard this last time, I think there were two issues that really propped up here. I think there was a concern of the process that we had from the zoning process, and I believe the council, we referred that to the Land Use Committee, I believe, along with Mike's crew as they go forward here to review that. Yes. The other one was the concerns that the citizens had concerning their safety, the setbacks and those kinds of things, which you have addressed here. One other question I might ask, though, along with the tree, is the trees that they want to plant. You said that the developer will put the full range of trees in through Project 1 and the second phase. They'd be put in right at the get-go, correct?
Along that west property line,
Correct.
yes. Yep, to provide that screen along the entire backyards of the existing single-family residential area.
Okay.
And that's the intent of condition number 2.
Councilor Litz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mike, my concerns are with number 3 and number 4, temporary construction access being put through there. When I saw the drawing, it looked like the temporary construction access was going through an active business. Landscape gardens, and from what I know, they're still going to be there for a little bit. And then the second part here, Phase 2 of the proposed project would not be constructed until West 81st Street. The reality is it's a possibility that will never happen as well. Therefore, postponing that until other development-driven projects between that east of the project and Minnesota Avenue would come through. Is that correct?
Well, I think we can go through a lot of what-ifs because, yes, I suppose that is possible. But again, based on my discussions Friday and Friday afternoon with Dan Lemmy. They are adamant that they will work with Landscape Garden Center to provide a construction easement through that area, and that's why we put this on here tonight, to make sure that that is a requirement by the developer. And second of all, that the TreeCom Properties, which is the owners of the balance of this site, is working on trying to develop that entire property. They're out actively marketing land between the assisted living and Minnesota Avenue, and so they want to see the road done by 2012 as well. That's in their best interest to get it done as quickly as possible.
I understand that, Mike, but, the economy being what it is, just don't know, I guess. So I'm personally a little uneasy with that access not being completed, and I know it's a lot of money to put that in without having the adjacent property sold, but
That's what we said Phase 2 definitely would not proceed until that street is done. And again, the information that I'm trying to convey tonight is that everybody is committed to trying to get that road through by 2012.
Councilor Wolfing.
Mike, thank you. Mayor, are you planning on putting the 81st Street in from Audi east to the cul-de-sac and then doing a temporary road east from there to Minnesota? Is that the way it's going to go?
Yeah, the developer applicant with Phase 1 would install 81st Street to the temporary cul-de-sac.
It'd be a temporary cul-de-sac.
Yep.
Okay,
Emphasize the word temporary.
okay.
The construction access off of Minnesota Avenue is going to be worked out with Dan Lemmy and Landscape Garden Center to
So it could
avoid
be just
having
a
to go
little
up Audi Avenue and
Entrance and things,
and
right?
using 81st Street.
So you're basically going to talk about a gravel road going in there?
Right.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Litz.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Then Mike, what I hear you saying is the road where it's going to go in through Landscape Garden or around it, or it hasn't really been determined at this point.
Well, again, I don't know that it's been determined. I'm just saying that they essentially promised me Friday afternoon that they would work with the applicant to map that out, to find the best route for that to happen, to avoid having to go up Audi Avenue and 81st Street.
Thanks, Mike.
Councilor Rolfing.
I had one other question that I had when I was writing this down. The lights on the exits, as I remember looking at this, there were about 3 exits is all on outside exits for this because of the security of this building.
Right.
I'm assuming those exit lights would be shining down and would not be shining out, shall I
Right.
say, into the neighborhood?
Yes,
Okay, so they'll just light
Correct.
the door area is all?
that's correct.
Okay.
That's my understanding, yes. Okay, I'll stop there and I'll be
Mr.
around.
Cooper,
if
thank
need-
you so much. Is there anyone from the audience who'd like the opportunity to speak? Please feel free to come on up. Just give your name, please.
Good evening. My name is Joel Sylvester. I live at 7104 South Wilshire Pine, one of the properties adjacent to this. I am one of the neighborhood people that will be speaking tonight. Just to kind of get an idea of those of you that are here that represent the neighborhood and have concerns of this, could you please just raise your hand? So let me start by thanking every single person on the City Council. It has been a great opportunity to get to know each and every one of you, and I greatly appreciate the time that you took to come out to our property, to take a look at our concerns, Mr. Mayor, I would reiterate that to you. I greatly appreciate your time in this matter and talking to us. I think this has been an education for all of us, and it has allowed us to work on a lot of things. Next, let me thank Mike Cooper and Dave Loveland. They have answered questions all over the place from the end of it. I was on the phone as shortly as I think 2 hours ago with Dave. So I greatly appreciate the help that the city has given us in this matter. As Mike Cooper referenced, we have worked with the developer. We've had several meetings with Steve Westra and Paul Haig, and I think a lot of compromises have been made that I think are really, really good. We do have a couple of concerns that I just want to talk to tonight and really make sure that this conditional use permit does go in with the proper conditions. So first off, actually, Mike Cooper, I do have a couple questions for you. Could you go back to the 5 items that he has listed? Okay, so number 4, I have a question on that one. So phase 2 of the proposed project will not be constructed until West 81st Street from South Audie Avenue is completed. So is that to Minnesota? That says Audie there, but it doesn't say anything to Minnesota. It should say Minnesota. Okay, so just for clarification, it should say Minnesota. And then the next question I have is that landscaping in accordance with the revised landscape plan showing the staggered double row of trees. Can you go to the map that actually shows the trees themselves? So, yep, that's fine. So has this been looked at? I know there will be windows on the actual property. Will this in any way block those windows and cause a code violation there? Okay, so we're comfortable with that piece of it. Okay. Go ahead.
Just so people at home know, Mike shook his head. No. Thank you, Ms. Sylvester. Go ahead.
You bet. At this point, we really have, 2 issues that we want to talk about. I hand out to the City Council and to the Mayor, kind of outlining some of the things that we wanted to talk about. One of them's already been addressed as far as the height, so that's fantastic. One thing that I want to comment on is a few of the statements that we have that are taken right out of city documentation. And as the neighborhood kind of reviewed city documentation, these were some of the things that stood out to us. Right now, I do have a petition that I will provide that has 40 signatures of names of the neighborhood that do oppose the current plan. Okay? We are not, a majority of the neighborhood, I can say, a majority of the neighborhood is not in opposition to the facility. We believe that the facility is a necessity. We think that if done correctly, can be an asset to our neighborhood. We do have concerns with part of the plan. Our neighborhood has had a chance to talk about a lot of things. We've got a lot of healthcare providers in the neighborhood, a lot of people whose relatives suffer from dementia, Alzheimer's, different things like that could be directly impacted by this. My 85-year-old grandfather suffers from dementia. I understand the frustration that can be caused by this, and I think, again, it is a worthwhile project. There are just a couple items that I want to talk about. So one of the things that I handed to the City Council talks about a few things taken directly from city documents. First, the Sioux Falls Planning and Building Service Department mission statement says, the Planning and Building Services Department is responsible for managing the orderly development of Sioux Falls and overseeing the protection of property along with ensuring public safety in building construction and maintenance. The next item I'd like to reference is the City of Sioux Falls Conditional Use Permit Informational Handout, Section 15.59.100. Any conditional use approved by the Planning Commission must conform to the minimum requirements of the zoning district in which the use is located and to minimum conditional use standards. Additionally, the Planning Commission can add other requirements or conditions that are appropriate. In all cases, the impact of the proposed use on the adjacent properties will be a major consideration. And then finally, in Shape Sioux Falls 2035 document, it states, traffic, parking, and other external effects should be directed away from lower intensity uses. Landscaping, buffering, and screening should be employed to minimize negative effects. So at this point, the two issues the Councilman Entenmann actually referred to are safety from a traffic standpoint as well as the setback. So I saw the plan presented today by Mike Cooper a couple hours ago. I think a temporary construction road, while it's a thought, I do have concerns about it. I've talked to many of the neighbors that have concerns about it. Okay, we've had an unusual amount of rain lately, but the tree center right now it's a mud pit. With this being approximately a one-year project that starts in the fall, goes through the winter, we have definite concerns that a temporary road just will not be maintainable to allow for additional access, leaving the only access right through the neighborhood. You know, in addition to that, in the research we've done, the conversations we've had, if Audi becomes the main flow for construction traffic, any damage done to Audi will then become the city's liability. And finally, you know, Councilman Litz, you brought up the fact that there could be a lot of what-ifs, you know, when this gets completed. If this center is in operation and it only has single access, it does not meet the dual access code, that also could be a liability for the city if emergency vehicles are unable to get to the property if needed. So the road, what we are asking is, as part of the conditional use permit, is that completion of 81st Street from Audi to Minnesota is required prior to construction starting. The next point has to do with setback. That, you know, the 30 feet that is shown, I think according to, you know, code is 15, 30, you know, that would technically hold the trees of that size. But again, all of you have had a chance to come out and look at the property. This is not a normal house going into a residential area. This is approximately 100,000 square foot commercial building that is going in, using the minimum or the least amount that the trees would need. I just don't think is appropriate in this particular area. You know, the city of Sioux Falls does face, you know, these challenges, but I think the way that you transition a property like this into the neighborhood, again, can be seen as an asset versus a liability. In this particular case, you know, this is a for-profit business that is coming in. One of the reasons they are coming into this neighborhood, as stated to us, is because of the feel of the neighborhood. And we want to maintain that. We want to maintain that. We think a way to do that is by ensuring that there is a proper buffer zone. The neighborhood, as researched, the 17, all of the licensed nursing homes or assisted care facilities in Sioux Falls, and this would be the first that is this close and came in, or that came in after a neighborhood was established, where the neighborhood was actually in place and it came forward. You know, our recommendation is we need to make the proper buffer to protect the current residents from that end of it. Along with that, a berm was mentioned by Mike Cooper, and I know the developer has talked about the drainage ditch. I guess more of a question that I would have, or that I would ask, is that this conditional use permit be, if it is granted, it be granted with, again, the 81st Street be completed, and be granted only as to such time that the research could be done to find out if truly it could be moved closer to the east. If you look at the plan, as you can see it there, it is the parking lot to the east there. A berm is another thing that we had talked about, and at this time, I don't think the engineering plan has been done to see if a berm could work or not. So I would at the very least ask that part of the conditional use permit be that the research be done to see, can it be moved the 50 feet, and can the berm actually survive? If the if the drainage ditch is as such that it can't be moved to 50 feet, I really think another compromise needs to be made, or another solution needs to be met, whatever that might be, whether it's changing the layout of the building or taking, part of the building off. At this point, moving it this close to an established neighborhood would be, again, a change to our neighborhood. I feel that would be too major for this particular type of use. It has, and then the final. So I've kind of talked about the conditions that we really feel are sticking points here. And then the last point that I just wanted to bring up again, and I know Mike Cooper brought it up earlier, but I actually want to show two maps. I want to show first the map of the resident signatures that we have that are opposing the current plan, and then I want to show the map that was originally submitted to you, to the City Council. Some of you were on it at that time, some of you weren't, February 16th, because what you will see is it is a dramatic difference. And I know Mike said this happens, but it doesn't mean that it's right. So I'd like to show you two maps, and I think I can use this for that.
While Mr. Sylvester's doing that, just so I can explain to the people watching at home, as well as people in the audience that are familiar with City Council meetings, normally we allow about 5 minutes for each person to speak. In this case, all the City Councilors, as well as myself, we know who has been the primary spokesperson for this neighborhood. They are a very cohesive group, and they've asked Mr. Sylvester to speak eloquently for them, and I think you'll find that he's done just that. So that is the reason why I've allowed him a little extra leniency in the spirit of trying to get through all the points for the entire neighborhood versus having a number of folks come up. Again, I thank you for that. City Council, any questions for Mr. Sylvester, please? Any comments, again, on what's being presented up above?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will finish here quickly. There will probably be a neighborhood, another neighbor or two that would like to make a brief comment. So here's the map that shows, you can see the black section that is outlined there, shows where the property is set to go. On the signed petition are the residences that we have that are in opposition to the current plan. So as you can see, a vast majority of the neighborhood has had a chance to see the plan, review the plan, and does have concerns with the items that I've outlined.
Mr. Sylvester, thank you so much. Your second document?
And then this is the last document. You can see, and I'll point to it. This is what was originally used to rezone the land on February 16th. So that is 26 single-family homes, which is what we all expected, what we were all told to expect, what we all watched for. Last week, there was a gentleman, Timmers, I believe was it Jim Timmers, that was here that spoke about some of the things around zoning. I know you guys are well aware of that, and I know you're working on that. But this for us is very difficult as a neighborhood to see something like this, that on February 16th, a plan like this was put down with single-family homes, and then in April, 6 or 7 weeks later, the current plan that is being shown is put up. From that end of it, very concerning that an established neighborhood has to see this come before the City Council for rezoning and then so quickly go to a commercial building.
Mr. Sylvester, thank you. And also, I want to let folks know, Councilor Jameson was kind enough to help educate the new mayor on the protocol. In terms of the speakers to come up to the podium at this point, we'd prefer that the opponents, those opposed to this, come up first, like Mr. Sylvester did. So if there's any other opponents, please, come on up, please. And Councilor Jameson, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, Councilwoman, It's nice to be here. Tony Seibert, 912 Glen Eagle. I'm just a neighbor of the neighborhood, and I'm actually a very recent person to Sioux Falls. So I just moved here from the great city of St. Louis, and actually found that Sioux Falls is actually a better city. So, you know, the opportunity to be able to come up here and speak with you tonight is a pleasure. So what I really wanted to talk about tonight is a little bit of some of my background and some of the things that I've seen in St. Louis. So I actually served on a traffic calming committee with the city of O'Fallon, Missouri. And basically it was a committee that was formed with the help of the councilmen and residential neighborhoods due to the concerns of the traffic issues that they faced. And these are the exact issues that we faced every week. So got to see a lot of different things come in front of us, work through a lot of different situations. And these are the type of things that I feel are going to be brought up again and again in the future. So I just wanted to reiterate that, you know, the completion of the 81st Street to Minnesota from Audi is essential to this building going in. So thank you for your time.
Mr. Seibert, thank you.
My name is Bonita Schwan, and I live at 7601 Audi, which is right at the corner of 85th and Audi Avenue. I'm a mom of 4 kids, 16, 14, 13, and almost 12. And I first of all want to thank the mayor for coming to the neighborhood yesterday to meet with the moms and the dads and the kids about our safety concerns, and also all the councilmen who have taken our calls, who have met with us. We so greatly appreciate that. I do not oppose the building of the Esprit project. What I do ask this council to vote as a requirement is the completion of 81st Street prior to the construction. Last night, we had a neighborhood meeting at my home where there were over 50 people in attendance. We, of course, are greatly concerned about our children's safety. We have a great neighborhood. It's filled with young families who ride their bikes, they're on their strollers. We're the feeder Audi is for all the kids, the young drivers who drive to Harrisburg, as we're in the Harrisburg School District. And we want to thank the council for all they've done to make Sioux Falls such a great place to live. Of the 50 people who were at my home last night, we sat down and tried to figure out how many kids that we knew would be along the direct lines of where this access would be if 81st Street is not put in first and if the neighborhood is the feeder. We came up with over 50 kids who are living in homes right along this Audi and other main roads, Glen Eagle, etc., that would be affected by the single access of the cul-de-sac and not the completion of 81st Street. It's a very dangerous situation, and as a mom of and a representative of all the mom and dads in the audience, we actually are pleading with you to put as a requirement the completion of 81st Street before they start construction. Because as a parent, we understand the proposal, and it comes down to dollars and cents. How much would it cost the developer to complete this road between Audi and Minnesota versus our 50-plus kids who are right on that route and are playing with their dogs and they are crossing the streets in their bikes. And then we have to see a recommendation this afternoon come out that says we may be the sole access. There may never be a completion of 81st Street. It's their intent that is not a requirement. And even if Phase 2 is built, we are going to go for a full year where the only access is going to be the neighborhood, a full year. And so we feel there has not been any compromise on the safety issue for our 50-plus kids who line that direct access, the only access that this developer is willing to pay for their cul-de-sac. So we plead with you, your moms, your dads, and I feel it is wrong for this not to happen in such a great city as Sioux Falls. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Swan. Yes, sir.
Mike Yannick, and I live at 801 West Glen Eagle. I just want to touch on the size of the parking lot. And because this has been zoned or coded assisted living, you probably know that that comes with 0.75 parking spots per unit or bed or something of that nature. Well, unless I'm mistaken, I don't believe any of the residents are going to be driving. And that seems to be an excessive amount of parking that's required. Had this been coded in nursing home or something a little more, I don't know how to say it, a little more to what it's going to be serving, the parking requirements are less. And so because it got the assisted living tag, it comes with these parking requirements. And I would also ask that you consider reducing the number of parking spots that are required, because unless I'm mistaken, I honestly don't feel that the residents will be driving. It would just be employees. So if you could consider that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Yannick, thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Janet Jelkin. I live at 700 West Tradewinds. I'd like to thank all the members of the City Council for actually, most of you have been out and seen the neighborhood and seen the issues that we deal with. I would personally like to speak for my neighbors who are up against the bump outs. I'm fortunate. I live right in the corner up there at the top. I have a nice buffer of about 100 feet for my property, which I very much appreciate, and I very much appreciate the staggered trees that will be put in there. During this whole process, the first time that I actually had some hope for this being something that I could feel good about was when Mike Cooper mentioned to me to go out to East 10th Street and take a look behind the Sunshine Store, where they had actually put in a row of staggered trees, and I just would like to put that up. Upside down. That doesn't help. There's a nice coverage of mature trees there. At this point in time, when the trees come in, they will be quite smaller. We will not have a buffer that looks like this, but someday it will be. It's my understanding that the trees grow about a foot per year. The other consideration here is when you look at this tree line, it is actually across the street from the homes that face the back of the Sunshine Store. So there is quite a bit of space there before the tree line. The other property that we took a look at was behind Williams Insurance. It's at Heather Ridge. This again shows a really nice coverage of trees in that area. Once again, the picture in the corner shows the trees that are up against the homes. We have a driveway and parking spots before the building actually takes place. So the trees are wonderful. They won't be mature for 20 years. There will be building directly behind those trees. And for my neighbors that are at the bump out, I'm speaking on to my concern for them is that it's really not enough of a setback. And that's my main concern. I did a lot of research during this process, taking a look at assisted living centers that are in this area. Some of you took that research with you at one of our meetings. I just would like to point out one area. This is a development of Prairie Creek. The Google map doesn't show it completely done, but this is a facility that the Planning and Zoning Office told us you should go look at this. So we did, and it's a beautiful facility, and surrounding this facility, excuse me, I'll put up. This is a facility. Surrounding the facility, there are apartments, twin homes that were built. This is actually planning. This is a facility that was put in and planned for the neighborhood and not just dropped in as an afterthought. And that is about all the comments I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Chalkin. Anybody else from the neighborhood or anybody else who is opposing this particular activity? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Ryan Ling, and I'm at 7413 Audie Avenue. And I really just wanted to be another face to the council members and to the mayor that, this really involves a lot of children here. For my personal concern, I really do have a strong concern of the fact that 81st is currently, would have a cul-de-sac at the end of it. I'm the father of 3 children, all under the age of 5. I know the neighbors next to me have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And the people behind me have 5 children as well, ranging from the ages of 2 to 16. This really is a huge impact to our neighborhood. Part of the reason that we chose this neighborhood, my family and I, is because it is a quiet neighborhood. And I think what we need to be concerned about is so much more than the construction, is the fact that, as Councilman Litz had said too, what if Phase 2 isn't done? We have emergency service vehicles that are going to have to use Audie. We have all the visitors to the patients that are going to have to use Audie. And it's really going to change the makeup of our neighborhood. So thank you very much for your time and your opportunity to hear me out.
Mr. Lehan, thank you. Seeing nobody else that is opposing it, is there anybody here that is in favor of this particular activity?
Paul Haig, 1300 West 57th Street. I am the applicant for this project, and I too would like to thank Mike and Dave and the planning office for all they have done to try to make this be as easy a process as possible. It's been taxing on all of us. A lot of hard work has been done, and I just would like to clarify one thing, and that is that we are the developer of the site. We are not the developer of the land. Just to clarify, Mike did indicate that we are developing 81st Street. We are not. That is being done by TreeCom and their associates. Just wanted to make sure that we're clear on that aspect of it. Likewise, since we're not the owner of the entire parcel, and TreeCom is, they are the ones that are controlling the ultimate development of 81st Street. We are here to say that we agree with the stipulations that are set forth. In addition to relative to the street, we won't build until 81st Street is done. It could be that 81st Street is done before we ever build, if that area develops. And so, what we felt we've done is taken the time to meet with Mike and the neighbors and tried to push our development to the best that we could to accommodate the neighborhood. We also feel like we're going to bring an asset to the city of Sioux Falls that not only is an asset to the community, but also an economic generator for the community and job creation. And I won't go through all the facts because I think you have all of those facts. But I'm also here to answer any questions that you might have.
Councilman Intzman.
Paul, did you say that you really, unless they put 81st Street through there, you're not going to build until the developer puts the street in anyway? Is that correct?
Because of because we're agreeing to that stipulation, yes, that's the way we would follow that. Yes.
Councilor Rolfing.
But you mean the temporary street?
No, I'm talking about the Phase 2 of the development.
Okay, Phase 2.
Phase 2 of the development, we would not construct the facility, Phase 2, until 81st Street was done.
Have you had any conversations with the people at Landscape Garden about potentially putting in, or has our Lemmy had any conversations about completing 81st Street right away?
I don't think we've ever really had that point of a conversation. But when it really comes down to the development of land, you tend to phase that in because of the cost associated with it. Now, I'm not speaking for them. I'm just speculating on how development goes. In that that would be a major cost element for them to put in when we are, along with to the south, it's my understanding that there's some multifamily housing slated to go in. We are the only two right now that are developing or proposing to develop, which is on the west side of that property. And to extend that street all the way through, I think just becomes a kind of a cost-prohibitive nature for them. Likewise, they have their business running there, and they need to plan for that, disrupting that business with a permanent street.
Councilor Entman.
In your plan for this facility, looking into the future, and after you develop Phase 1, what do you think your plan from a timeline standpoint would be to roll out into Phase 2?
Well, if we look at developing and being open by middle to second to third quarter of 2011, we're probably looking at a 12 to 24 month ramp up period. So we're going to be well eclipsing that proposed 2012 timeframe for 81st Street before we'd probably really even be ready to develop Phase 2. Now, if things really go well and we come out of the blocks faster than anticipated, we may be pushing them to do something. But, we are agreeing that today, realizing that we may be hindered in developing Phase 2 by the fact that 81st Street isn't done. But we're willing to do that today to get, the project moving.
Councilor Jameson.
Paul or Steve, what kind of impact as far as traffic do you anticipate with the staff that would be using Audi Drive and this temporary, this 81st Street once Phase 1 is open?
I'm not sure that I can answer that with any high degree of knowledge, other than the fact that I think it was stated that these residents do not drive. So in a normal general assisted living center, you may have residents that drive, or if there's independent living that they have, there's elements of people that drive. These residents will not be. We're anticipating about 35 FTEs or full-time equivalent employees, but that's over a 24-hour shift. So you break that out over the course of 3 different shifts. You're talking 10 people or 10 and a half people per shift, and so they'll be coming and they'll be going home. So there's not the rapid exchange of people coming and going like maybe they do when they go to and from their homes. And then, of course, you're going to have some, visitors of loved ones coming, but it's hard to gauge, how often they're going to be coming.
Yes.
Another question. Can you address that parking question that was brought up about 7.5 parking spots per bed? Are you under that?
Yeah, I think that's, really that's more of probably a Mike question than anything else. Granted, if we can minimize the cost of our parking lot, we'd be happy to do that, but we're just complying with what city code is.
Okay.
Mr. Craig, are you representing the firm that's actually going to build the facility as well?
Correct,
tonight?
yeah. Esprit of Sioux Falls is a partnership that is going to be building it as well.
So when you say they and in fact tonight is you?
You're
the spokesperson for
yes,
them?
Right, yes, for Esprit, yeah.
With your permission, if you wouldn't mind staying there. Ms. Cooper, could you just come up to the podium, please? Mike, I don't know if you recollect, who was here on the night of February 16th that gave the presentation to the City Council? I was not the mayor at that time. I don't even remember if I was here that night. But who represented the developer that night and presented this document to the city
Right.
council and the mayor? Who did that?
I was the one that presenting the information on behalf of the staff, but the applicant at that time was Paul DeYoung, representing Treecom Properties.
Is Mr. DeYoung here tonight?
Not that no, don't believe so.
Mr. Haig, if I may ask you a question, and it's maybe not appropriate because you certainly are not representing Treecom here tonight, but how do you address the question that Mr. Sylvester had, where he's trying to gain confidence, gain trust, when on the 16th the neighborhood was presented a residential development, and then a couple weeks later, now there's an Alzheimer's facility that's going to care for a number of people, but it's much different than a bunch of residential homes. How do we address that to make these neighbors feel confident? And I apologize, you're stuck here. Sorry.
Yeah, that puts a little bit of a loaded question on me because I'm trying to answer for somebody else. But if I were to put myself aside and put just strictly my developer hat on, if you will, and if I'm looking at land, ideas start somewhere. And I think when you come forth with a plan like this to present to, and Mike would have to verify this for me, but you have to have some kind of overall plan of what you think you want that site to do, or what you want it to be. It's conceptual, probably at best, but in order to get the zoning properly done, I think you have to have some kind of I'm drawing a blank on the term, but kind of a grand plan, if you will, of what that layout is going to be. The reality is that there is flexibility in those things, and they're moving targets. It's all affected by the economy. It's affected by where demand comes from. If I'm a developer of a large chunk of land and I want to go out and I want to sell it, I'm going to sell it to where the demand's coming from. I may have planned for it this direction, but it may become this direction in the future because I can't begin to speculate what that may be. Now, I'm grounded by maybe some constraints by the fact that I can't put an office building next to residential. I know that as a developer. But I can put single-family residential, or I can do other facilities like ours and still accomplish the goal I'm trying to accomplish, and that's selling my land as a developer of that land.
And I thank you for that. I can't vote tonight, folks, but I will tell you, this really concerned me. When this part of the conversation with this neighborhood, this part really concerned me. February 16th, there was a presentation made, and then all of a sudden, 5 weeks later, we have a grandiose change that now we're going to build a facility. My father is in the mid stages of Alzheimer's. Good chance he may be utilizing this facility. I'm all for it. But I tell you, this doesn't smell right to me at all. It didn't smell right to these people that live there. And I think we're trying to gain a semblance of trust. We're trying to gain that, and you want them to trust you, not you. And I apologize. You're the spokesperson here tonight.
Yeah.
You want them to trust you, but it's got to be a real challenge for me too. So again, I commend you for standing up here as solid as you are. But I am challenged by it. Councilor Litz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I may be able to shed some light on what's going on out there because 2004, I was the president of the Home Builders Association. In 2005, we bought a lot out there and built a new home builders thing. And in 2006, I'm on the city council watching this, and there have been a number of changes and a number of ideas with this piece of property as it's gone along. And in defense of Mr. Haig standing up here, it's very, very possible that one group of developers has no idea what the other one is due to the confidential nature of their business. And it just may have been that the better deal came along later on, and there's no intention of being surreptitious on this at all. That would be my assessment of it. Other land uses out there have changed over the years too, and I've watched them with some interest because of, we put the arterial road through there, and I thought it would ramp up a little bit. Well, the one thing that I would say is that I think, and I know putting that road through there, the type of road that it is, it's a collector road, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Cooper? It's going to be enormously expensive, but I think it would behoove, you as developers of this here, and for getting phase 2 in, and it would also probably behoove, the folks at Landscape Garden and future sales of their thing. And or at least to Lindcrest, in the very least, if they could extend that. I'm not sure which one's cheaper. Either way, it may be prohibitive. I want this facility to go in. And I think that some of the concerns here with the staggered trees, I'm not sure putting a berm up is going to be the answer, because if you start doing that with a 3-to-1, what you have run into is maintenance issues with the lawnmowers, getting the lawns mowed, which wouldn't be very good either. I don't see anybody back there with a hand clipper doing the trimming around those trees and along the fence line there. But I think a lot of their issues, your issues have been somewhat answered, and I think that compromise also involves the neighborhood here. And I was at your first the first gathering, and I've been paying attention to this issue. But I would just say, though, that I share the concerns of the neighborhood, that road, getting that access in there is a very important thing. And I also know it gets real complicated because of where it's got to come in. It's a right in and a right out. It probably has to be lined up straight east and straight west in order to qualify for the street that city planning would like to have it. It also would dictate future uses of that property to some degree, as to the layout and all that there. So, that said, I just it's one of these thorny issues we're looking at down here, and I understand both sides of it. But we put ourselves in this position, and that's why we're here tonight, to make up our mind. Oh, one other thing, Mr. Mayor, point of order, and you may not be able to answer this, but what exactly are we voting on here tonight? Is this a conditional use permit? And if we vote on the conditional use permit, does this project go forward as stipulated?
The answer to that, as far as I'm aware, is yes. We're not delaying it. Tonight, you good folks on the city council, whether you want to or not, are going to have to vote on this. You're voting for it or you're voting against it. Councilor Anderson, Jr.
I have a question for Mike. Mike, as I was listening to some of the testimony, I guess something that did get brought up that I hadn't heard about before was the safety concerns as far as emergency services. Now, for a building like this, do we not require that there be at least a couple accesses to this? Because isn't all the emergency vehicles going to have to come through the residential area?
As we went through our agency review of this Phase 1 only, this would be allowed, but Phase 2 would not be allowed without another access point. And again, the temporary construction access would provide for another emergency vehicle. But
if you're talking a gravel road, I guess that's sort of what concerns me, is that, we're talking about building a road to a cul-de-sac. How much road is going to be left over between there and Minnesota? I guess I'd also would have liked to know what that cost might have been, to complete that road, because once again, we're building a 48-bed facility here, and it's basically going to be in a dead-end area.
Yes. But again,
and I guess that's what concerns me.
We would allow Phase 1, but we would not allow Phase 2.
Councilor Brown.
Mike, just for confirmation on the emergency service vehicles, I assume that we got approval by emergency service agencies. Can you remind us what that process is, how you do it?
We go through, it's primarily fire rescue that would look at that.
And they did look at this one and approved?
Yes.
Thank you.
They're part of our normal agency review process for all items that go to the Planning Commission.
Councilor Entman.
There's a lot of really cool trucks out there that can go all-terrain vehicle kind of thing too. During the construction process, Mike, is it very possible if we went ahead with this during that construction process, can we line up some snow fence along that area or require that done so that we don't have the potential for people taking shortcuts across a gravel road kids specifically would probably have a tendency to do that, but maybe even some construction workers some time might do that. Is it possible that we could make sure that we can secure that a little bit better during the construction process?
Again, as part of the temporary construction access, my discussions with Dan Lemmy did include that very issue, that they don't want that to become perceived as another public route through that area. So they would work with the city on monitoring that and making it secure. That was his commitment to me.
Before I go to the next question, are there any other questions for Mr. Hague? I mean, he's standing there so strong, confident, and I commend you for that. Any questions for Mr. Hague? And then we'll go back to Mike. Councilor Jameson.
Paul, do you know offhand how much you're spending on that, or would propose to spend on that section of 81st Street next to your facility? What it's going to cost you?
What it's costing us for the road, we're paying a retail price for the land, which includes the road to be constructed. So I don't have any cost baked into to the road itself. It's baked into the cost of the land.
So the developer of the whole property is going to...
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's my understanding. Again, I'm not, here to represent what they're doing. So, and I just maybe would like to make one comment to you, Mayor, as well, and Mike may have to back me up on this, but I think the zoning when it was changed to RS2, and this is and just because I didn't have anything to do with the zoning change, and
to the folks at home, please understand, Mr. Hague is right. The way the process is set up today, they followed the rules, they followed it exactly. As my commitment to you as the new mayor, and my commitment to you as Mike Cooper and I have talked, folks, we're going to change this. We've got to. It's got to become more transparent, and we'll do that. But Mr. Hague is exactly right. They followed everything according to the rules as they are today. Mr. Rolfing. Councilor Rolfing, my apologies.
Mister's fine. Rex is good, too. Paul, while I would agree wholeheartedly with the concept of the facility, in my conversation with Mr. Westra, he indicated that you've been thinking about this program or this for some time. At least that's the impression that I had from him. And so I have a deep, deep, deep concern, the same one that the mayor has, that this was well done beforehand. And while nothing was really done in the zoning process that was wrong, it was a neat little way to get around the thing. I'm inclined to think that this 81st Street really does need to get done because of that. I don't know that a gravel road is going to do it. I guess that's kind of where I'm coming down on this right now because of some things that I feel deep down in my gut. And I hate to come down that way because I really think we need this thing, but I'm just really not feeling right. And usually my gut is pretty good on this kind of thing, that we need to do this. We need to do it with that 81st Street. And I know that's a hard thing for maybe you to swallow, but if it's a really good project, somewhere down the line, somebody's going to come up with the money to take care of that 81st Street and get her done, one way or another, or we'll find a way to get around it, get it done some other way, to get two accesses, because I don't think one access into a facility. If one access is okay for one of those, why is one access okay for one and it's not okay for two? And I know that's Mike's job. Yeah. That's Mike's job. So just wanted to let you kind of know where I'm coming on this one at this point.
Well, and I'd just like to, clarify too that and I have been thinking about this project for a long time. It's something that I've not done before. Senior housing isn't, so I've had to take a lot of time to get educated on it.
Yep.
And there was if there's a fear of some kind of collaboration between me and the developer, that we went out and looked for multifamily land, and this happened to be multifamily land. So I can say that with a good heart and know in my mind that that's the the way it is, so I hope that you understand that.
Councilor Brown.
Mr. Mayor, for the purposes of moving the discussion forward, I'm going to move to amend the main motion by adding the 5 conditional, or the 5 stipulations outlined by Mike Cooper. If the clerk wishes, I can read those, or for the benefit of the public.
Yes, please change it to minutes. Yes, please. Can you read those into the minutes? Thank you.
Number 1, the applicant will provide a 30-foot setback along the west property line. Number 2, the landscaping in accordance with the revised landscape plan showing the staggered double row of coniferous trees along the west property line be installed and maintained as shown. Number 3, a temporary construction access be provided from South Minnesota Avenue to the subject property. And number 4, Phase 2 of the proposed project not be constructed until West 81st Street from South Audie Avenue is completed to Minnesota Avenue. I'm adding that in. And number 5, all outdoor lighting and parking lot screening standards will be required to be met.
Is there a second?
Entenmann, second.
Seconded by Councilor Entenmann. Is there any discussion on the proposal with the amendments?
Say that again, please.
Councilor Roethling?
Councilor Brown, did you change number 4 to completion at this time, before the phase?
I did not. Completed to Minnesota Avenue was the language I added.
So it would be a temporary completion now?
Correct. What was proposed by planning.
What was proposed? Are we, has that been seconded? I did.
It has been seconded by Councilor Entenmann, and we are in discussion now on the proposal with the amendment.
Can I add an amendment to the amendment?
Amend the amendment?
To amend number 4 for completion at before Phase 1 is begun.
Second.
For 81st Street.
The amendment to the amendment is basically, I'll take some liberties here, Councilor Rolfing, Phase 1 of the proposed project not be constructed until 81st Street from to Minnesota is completed.
Correct.
Is there a second on that?
Second, Litz.
It has been seconded by Councilor Litz. This is an amendment to the amendment. And is there any discussion on that? Councilor Jameson?
The idea of finishing that road up to Minnesota Avenue is just a tremendous challenge for the developer. First off, he's got an existing business that he's running currently today, and he does not have other properties sold to other land users at this time. So for him to build that road in any configuration would be speculation on his part, and it would limit his access to sell that property to other people. And I think the idea of getting a temporary road put in there really addresses a lot of the issues the neighbors had with the construction equipment moving through their neighborhood in such a fashion. But I just think that if you impose that kind of a stipulation on the developer himself, you'll limit what he can do. First off, this deal would die, I would guarantee you. So I guess I'm asking you to maybe reconsider, but I just can't see how that would work.
Councilor Entenmann?
I think, to that point, I think Mr. Haig and his group has done everything that they're required to do in trying to get this proposal forward as a person that's interested in building this piece of property. The homeowners did express a lot of concern, and I agree with that. And I believe that we've addressed the traffic initially, the construction traffic coming into that, which really did scare me the most when I was going through that area. I do believe that the traffic will be lighter. If that's acceptable or not, it may not be to the people, the citizens. But once the facility is built, there's definitely no doubt that the traffic would be considerably lighter. There is a need for a facility like this. The care that's offered there is some kind of care that is unbelievable. If you've had a person, a family member that's had to go through things like this. I think that Mr. Haig has done it. It's just too bad that the developer isn't here to talk a little bit about it. But I think myself, the way that the amendments were read is originally is the way that I believe it should be. I do not believe the cost of engineering the street and stuff like that is prohibitive for Mr. Haig to do, and that's what I got to say.
Councilor Rolfing.
I have some real concerns. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Jameson and Mr. Enneman. And I'm inclined to withdraw my amendment. However, I also feel there's got to be a way to get through this some other way. And I would love to see the two of you get back together with Mr. Cooper to see if there's another way to get around this. It just doesn't seem the right way to do it. But I will withdraw my amendment.
Councilor Lentz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Rex here. I think that, I want this thing to go through. I really do.
Yes, I do,
It's going to be an asset to the neighborhood, like I've said, but I just think it's some unfinished business at this point. I think I would like to see some other ways explored. There's got to be some other thoughts put into this here and some other things checked out, and until I would see those checked out and see that they are denied and see some actual cost figures for that road, some things along that nature, I just feel compelled to not vote for the conditional use process because I don't want this to go forward as it is. I want it to go forward, but just I think that, like I said, it needs examined a little further.
Mr. Mayor? just
Yes.
point- oh, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you, Councilor Brown. Go right ahead.
We were just, from a point of order, trying to figure out if you withdraw, then the second would also have to withdraw, or we can just go ahead and vote.
Yeah, either way.
I'll withdraw my second if that's...
Okay, all right.
Councilor Rolfing submitted an amendment to the amendment, which was seconded by Councilor Litz. After some discussion, Councilor Rolfing decided to withdraw the amendment to the amendment, and Councilor Litz also has agreed to withdraw. So now we are on the amended proposal by Councilor Brown that was seconded by Councilor Entman.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Jameson.
I was fortunate enough to sit here for the Planning Committee meeting when they approved this project. And after that meeting, I met with Meredith Larson to discuss the challenges that this neighborhood had to overcome and the process that was done to inform them of a zoning change. And the chair of the Planning Commission agrees to meet with our Land Use Committee to figure out a better way of handling this. This is a shining light on the challenges that we face as a council all the time. And you're not the first neighborhood that's had this challenge, but this has evolved over a long period of time, and a lot of different changes and a lot of different ideas have come forward. I think you've got a new group of body of councilors who are going to attack this process and try to improve the process. That's our goal. After visiting with Meredith at the Planning Commission, he reiterated something I want to share tonight that probably is the biggest thing we should understand, is that in all the time that he's been involved in the Planning Commission, and I'm sure all the time that Mike's been involved and others, the biggest fundamental thing that has always occurred, is that the neighborhood always has a chance to oppose the project. In some way or one way or another, the neighborhood is never left out. They always get a chance. We have not failed in that process. Now, sometimes it hurts because it doesn't go their way. Sometimes it does. We saw that happen just last week. But the process of getting the neighbors, the landowners together and here has never failed. That's always happened. So the process isn't completely broke. It needs a tune-up. And I think we're going to do that. I think all of us are committed to trying to do a better process. You've helped shine light on that. if this doesn't work out for you tonight, you should know that that is something that is happening. Thank you.
Councilor Anderson Jr.
Can I ask a question of Mike Cooper?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mike, you stated earlier in your presentation that to the south of this facility, that there's a development of twin homes and multi-housing?
The zoning has been approved for those uses, yes.
Okay, and, right,
Yep.
exactly. And I guess, so I'm going to go back to 81st Street. That development also is going to impact the traffic and the flow in that neighborhood also, correct?
Yes.
So aren't we really going to want, is the owners of that development the same owners here too, or is it different owners of that property?
The property owner, I believe, is part of TreeCom, yes. And again, they are working on trying to put 81st Street through as quickly as they can, is what they've told me.
Okay, so they want to get it in before they develop that southern area too then, correct?
Or in conjunction with that.
Because that's something I guess I'm going to really be adamant about. If you're going to add that many more people, flowing through that same neighborhood with twin homes and maybe apartments, they should be looking at.
And that's, again, why we go through the agency review with including fire rescue, so that we can look at what has already been approved, what's been proposed. At what point do we say, then you have to have additional infrastructure to keep moving to the next step? We go through that process all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hague, with your permission, can I ask you another question, please? And again, I commend you for standing tall today. If we have a winter like we had last winter, and we're going to build this temporary road as good as you possibly can, or your team as possibly can, all of a sudden it just doesn't hold up. Your only option is Audi. Can you help comment on that? How do we deal with that? How do we give some confidence to the neighbors on that? Again, it's not your proposal.
That's truly truly a loaded question, in the fact that we can only do as much as we possibly can do, and beyond that, it gets a little outside of our control. I mean, this stipulation, while it's a good stipulation, and we can create an access point for those contractors to go through that area and block off the other access point, we're just going to have to deal with that. And weather and people and what they decide to do is a little bit, I can't, it gets outside of my control. So I can just say that we can do the best that we can do.
Councilor Jameson, thank you.
I don't want to pour cold water on this whole idea, but I've been involved with a couple developments, and it's pretty easy to see when neighbors and anybody who lives in the area and the construction workers will always use the shortest, easiest route. You can't hide from that. But as long as the developer, we've had this happen, as long as the developer encourages all their subcontractors to use a certain route, and that there's maybe a gate or something, they can control it somewhat. But I would just try to make it clear that it just isn't always going to happen as well as you'd hope it would. There's just going to be some guy who's rushing to lunch, and he's speeding through the neighborhood. I've gotten a ton of those calls. But I think as long as the developer is kind of committed to making the best effort to keep it calm in nature, I think that's all we could ask for.
We can communicate that as clearly as we can to each of those, our contractor and their subs respectively, and hope for the best. But as you said, there's going to be that lone ranger that decides he wants to go a different way.
One last thought. I tell you, this is a group of residents in Sioux Falls that have done their homework. They are watchdogs. I'm new to this job, but boy, if there's another group like this out there, look out to the next developer. I think it's a good lesson learned. thank you again for standing tall tonight, and again, thank you for the community leaders in that neighborhood. Are there any other comments, or I guess we've only allowed one proponent an opportunity to speak. Is there another proponent of the proposal tonight? Very good. Are there any other comments from the City Council before we vote on this tonight, or before you vote on this tonight? Seeing none, we will vote on the proposal as proposed and amended by Councilor Brown, seconded by Councilor Entenmann.
Just for clarification, we're voting on the amendment first with the stipulations, then we'll have to go back and vote on the main motion.
Councilor Brown, thanks so much for helping me out. I appreciate that. We are voting on the amendment as proposed by Councilor Brown, seconded by Councilor Entenmann.
Could we have them reread that too, Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Could we just reread that, please, for the councilors?
Did you want to? Go ahead. Oh, okay. You're sure welcome to. The amendment as proposed by Councilmember Brown would be, number one, the applicant will provide a 30-foot setback along the west property line. Number two, that landscaping in accordance with the revised landscape plan showing the staggered double row of coniferous trees along the west property line be installed and maintained as shown. 3, a temporary construction access be provided from South Minnesota Avenue to the subject property. 4, Phase 2 of the proposed project not be constructed until West 81st Street from South Audie Avenue is completed. And 5, all outdoor lighting and parking lot screening standards will be required to be met. Thank you.
One correction on number 4, the end line would be is completed to Minnesota Avenue.
All those in favor of that amendment, please vote yes, and those opposed, please vote no.
Councilor Brown?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Litz?
No.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
The amendment has passed 6-1. Now we have an amendment that is passed now. Is there any other further discussion before we vote on this measure? Hearing none or seeing none, we will vote on the amended motion. Please, all those in favor of the amended motion, please vote yes, and those opposed, please vote no.
Councilors Brown?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
The amended motion prevailed 7-0. Before we move on, I would truly like to thank everyone for coming tonight. Again, another example of city government at its finest. Thank you. Is there a motion to set a hearing date and second reading for Monday, June 21st, 2010 at 7 p.m. for items 4 through 9?
So moved. Jameson.
Second, Entenmann.
There's been a motion by Councilor Jameson, seconded by Councilor Entenmann. Are there any? We'll move on to item 4, please.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Section 27-41 of Article 3 of Chapter 27, Parks and Recreation of the revised ordinances of the city by revising recreation and facility fees.
Mr. Carney.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Don Kearney with Parks and Recreation. Today, before you, we have proposed fee increases for 2011. I want to reiterate that the proposal would go into effect January 1 as per the draft ordinance that's before you. And would also like to mention as we go through these proposed fee increases and a new fee increase on shelter reservations, that we did run these fee increases through our Parks and Recreation Board back in April, and they did unanimously support the proposed fee increases.
Any questions for Mr. Carney on number 4?
Yeah, I think I was going to go through a more brief presentation. I know we were before you at 4 o'clock, but for the benefit of the audience, I think I'd like to run through the slides if that's okay.
Sounds very, and for the benefit of the audience, just so they know, there was a very, very good presentation made for all of the city council. So for the residents of Sioux Falls, they've done their homework and more. Please, Mr. Carney, continue.
Thank you. The fee adjustment philosophy we took as we looked at the proposed changes, that there were no proposed changes for the free or reduced swimming program that we currently have in place. We've had a lot of success of getting people signed up for those free or reduced passes, and so there are no proposed increases in those areas. Efforts were taken to avoid increases in excess of 50% from the current charges. The proposed increases that we do have were targeted at those fees that we typically were well under the benchmarks of other communities that we've surveyed. And in the future, obviously, it's been about 10 years since we last looked at these fees, and we'd like to do that on a little more incremental basis so that the percentage of increase is not so large. I'll just take you through on our family swim pass. We did survey the other communities throughout the state of South Dakota on their fees. And the first one we start with is a family swim pass. We are proposing that the fee would increase from $50 to $70. The adult pass on the next slide would be an increase from $30 to $45. The child season pass would be, the current fee is $10. We'd increase that to $15 as proposed. The senior pass would go from $20 to $30 as proposed. Our traditional pools, which are our facilities like Frank Olson, Spellerberg, those facilities that don't have as many amenities, we would propose that the current fee of $1 increase to $2. The aquatic center daily admission fee would go from $2 to $3 as proposed. Those are facilities like Terrace Park, Laurel Oak, Drake Springs. I'd also mention that the proposed daily admission for adults would go from $3 to $4. The senior rate would go from $2 to $3. And then now we're talking more about our recreational programs. We have currently a sand volleyball league. The current fee is $50. We propose that would go to $75. The indoor volleyball league fee would go from $85 to $120. You notice on the slide there are cities that are asterisked. They actually provide officials for their particular league programs, and so we do not provide that, and so I would note that difference. And so we'll probably continue to be in that lower echelon of the rates that are charged throughout the state and throughout our region. The adult kickball prices for the league fees, again, would go from $50 to $75. And again, note the cities that do provide officials. And then we do have one fee that we're proposing that would be a shelter reservation fee of $25. We currently do not charge anything for the reservations at our city shelters. And so I think you'll find that as a general rule, that will be in the lower end of the cities that we've surveyed. I'd also mention in this slide, not to bore you with numbers, but we did issue more free family swim passes than we sold in 2009. And so I think we can say that we're getting great access to our aquatic facilities. And then as a recap on the slide, we do anticipate that the proposed fee increases as presented would generate another $175. Back one, there you go. In revenue for the city, less the sales tax, because our numbers are inclusive of sales tax as proposed. With that, I'd take any questions if you have any.
Any questions? And again, for the people viewing it at home, there was extensive conversation at 4 o'clock. So again, the city council is definitely doing their job and more. Mr. Carney, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by amending the fee schedule set forth in Chapter 23, Licenses.
Good evening, Jill Franken, Health Department. Item 5 pertains to fee changes for the Health Department, fees in Chapter 23. And as you know, and has been described at informational last week, as well as additional information for you, the Health Department, back in 2008, began this process of looking at Chapter 23 fees and reviewing these to understand and if it was appropriate to apply the same methodology to these fees as we have in other areas of our department, other departments in the city, as well as what's being done in other communities. And that is to align the expense or the revenue that we generate with these fees for the expense of providing the service that these fees encompass. There are several types of fees in this chapter for the Health Department, but most of the information and data pertains to restaurant fees, and I will just do a little bit of a review of that again. Slide 1 is demonstrating for you or showing what we did back in 2008 when we looked at several communities and took a similar restaurant like McDonald's, for example, that's represented here, Applebee's, Texas Roadhouse, and then Hy-Vee, that would be, or a similar sized grocery in these locations. And what you have here under the Sioux Falls plus the state fee is exactly that. It's our city fee, and then it's also the state fee that they revert back to us. The state also has a fee for health inspections that we do, and through contract with the State Department of Health, those fees are reverted back to us because we do that work for them. And then you can see back in 2008 where our fees landed for, say, a convenience store and or a McDonald's, and then if you compared that same level of service or licensing fee at Albert Lee or Fargo, what those ranges were going to were at that time. We expect that we would probably do additional comparisons perhaps in another year or so, just to update that to see if we're still in line, but we knew we had some work to do when we looked at the differences between where we were at and where these other communities were at. Some quite a bit different when you look especially at the grocery fees. So after we did that fee analysis, we also then developed a summary of what it might look like to get our revenues and expenses to line up. And at that time in 2008, we thought it would take us anywhere right around 3 to 5 years, but then developed what we brought to you that were changes for 2009 and 2010. We're actually based on around a 20% increase, which we have now continued again today, what we're recommending, and that is an additional 20% increase from what our fees currently are to what they will be for the 2011 licenses. And so you can see currently where our fees are, the number of active facilities in those ranges. So we have those split out based on the size of a restaurant, for example. So a smaller restaurant is not going to have to pay, nor do they require as much inspection time as a larger facility. And a grocery, the number of active facilities, the sizes of those facilities, and also their current fees, and then the proposed fees. We also have some additional fees for 2011 that you can see. Several of those relate to tattoo establishments and those that provide those tattoos, and then our temporary event fee, which was a new fee that we just instituted last year with the changes to our fees. And then a couple of processing fees, administrative fees for hospital, convalescent home, and pest control operators. When we look at these increases in these fees, it's important to note this really doesn't. When you look at how we've set these, if you look at how much it costs per day to these entities, it's very, very little. When you look at the dollar amount of the increase, it looks 20% is 20%, certainly. But when you look at these restaurants and these groceries, what they would be paying per day, it's really very little. Then, lastly, just want to review the other factors that we take into consideration when we look at our fees. This year, we're recommending the rates that you saw before you. What we would do again next year is we would again evaluate the number of restaurants in each of those categories. We would evaluate where our costs are at this time. we would evaluate what's going on with the trend changes with data and what's being recommended for a licensing and inspection process, and then quite simply also work with the state. We've been in some conversations with the State Department of Health, and they too are always looking at what are the ways that we should be inspecting these facilities, how should we be providing this level of protection to the communities in not just Sioux Falls but in South Dakota. So then lastly, if you look at what we're anticipating for our revenue from this work, we're estimating that this fee change will create $172,000 in city fees revenue. We anticipate that we should receive around $120,000 from the state fee reversions for a total of around $292,000 estimated total revenue for this service that we're for these fees. The cost estimate for grocery, food, the licensing and inspection, salary and benefits are roughly $290,000. Our supplies, IT support is about $25,000, and vehicles and fuel cost is $34,500 for a total expense of $349,500. We anticipate that by 2012, 13, and 14, we will ultimately then be able to align if we can continue to make these changes to our fee structure in those years. And in 2012, we anticipate that if we can make a change similar to this year, we will achieve $343,000 in revenue total. And then by 2013, $362,000 in revenue. And by 2014, we should be at a really close match of generating the minimum that we feel we need of $400,000 in revenue for the expense of this service. And certainly, as I've indicated before, that would definitely be all based on the variables that I mentioned earlier. I just want to reiterate that this is not a new process that we take in this department. We have been looking at ways that we can match our charges to our expenses in many areas of the health department. We've been doing this with our water fees in our health department lab for the water testing we do for the public. We have also done this in the community health center for many years. It's a requirement, actually, that we each year review our expenses and make sure that the charges to our patients match the expenses. And so that's something that we are very familiar with doing and do on a regular basis. We've also adopted the same principle for our noise permits, and we'll continue to make sure that whatever the cost of that workload is, that we're able to apply the same revenue generation to cover that cost.
Thank you, Ms. Franklin. Thank you. Number 6. Item 6.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by amending the schedule of rates to be charged by the City Light and Power Department for furnishing electric current for light and power purposes as found in Chapter 41, Utilities. Item 7. First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 18 thereof to increase rates at the landfill in sections 18-30A, 2-3, 18-30B, 2-3, and 18-30G with an effective date of January 1st, 2001. Item 8, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city, revising sewer utility rates and charges as found in Chapter 41, Utilities. Item 9, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by increasing water rates as found in Chapter 41, Utilities.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight we bring to you the first reading for the annual rate analysis. In front of you is the items and the respective utilities. Would just like to reiterate with the analysis that was done, we went through about a 2-hour presentation last Monday evening. Now with technology that is web streamed, as well as the presentation is attached to this agenda, as well as siouxfalls.org. And so we are interested if people have questions. We're certainly here tonight to answer them, but also they can call our office at 367-8600, and we'll do our best to answer them. We also, in an attempt to take the 90 slides down to a 4-page booklet, our team put this summary together, took a look at just what the community snapshot is, why we do rate analysis, what some of the benchmarking areas are. And this is one back. This is the electric utility in Sioux Falls is in the green. The next slide. This is the solid waste landfill tipping fees, and this is a comparison to other cities in South Dakota. And finally, this is a snapshot of other communities in South Dakota with the combined sewer and water utility bill, and respectively shows the 2010 and proposed 2011 utility increase, and that's based on someone that uses on average about 5,310 gallons per month. Also inside the booklet gives more breakdown on each respected utility. But then on the back, probably the most important that people look at each year is what is going to be the impact of the typical residential home. And this is a similar slide that was in last week's presentation. And so from our standpoint, we understand it's late, but we're certainly here to answer questions. These rate increases are on track with what we projected last year. And this has really been a long-term methodology that we are finally getting to the point with some of the utilities like water reclamation where we are at inflationary rates. And so with that, Mayor, I'm here to answer any questions.
Councilor Brown.
Just one, Mark. Would you please run through the typical home, what increases they will see in that total amount?
I certainly
starting
will.
For January 1, if this would pass.
Certainly. Starting with the top of the slide, light and power. Now, we have segregated light and power off because they only provide power to about 1,633 residential customers, but the typical impact to those customers would be an increase of $4.41. The majority of the customers all have water, wastewater, and pay a landfill or a collection company to pick up their garbage. Respective increases for them are 57 cents on their sewer bill, $2.86 on their water bill. And again, we don't set the rates for garbage collection, but just our understanding on how much the tipping fee is as a part of the garbage collection bill, that should affect it by about 19 cents for a total of $3.62. And then again, frontage foot, which is item 12 tonight, that's a resolution. We're not recommending a rate increase this year. That's a procedural step to allow us to assess that. So,
Councilor Jameson.
Mark, were those annual numbers that you just read?
Those are monthly numbers.
Monthly numbers.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those that you can't hide from. Essentially, if you live in Sioux Falls, you know the parks. You can elect not to use them. But, you know, Mark, I asked, I think, once before, but, you know, what would you do if this body said no? What would happen, and what would you do?
Well, we ran some of those financial strategies. We can go through each if you'd like. Let us at least go through light and power. That's the next slide. And this is the graph that showed you what our projected operating reserves are with respect to the target. And the key thing to look at on here is the red line is our target. And again, this is a utility that has no debt and also is well managed, and we've come out of some key capital projects, and so we've reached that smoothing effect with this utility. Now, if you look at 2011, that's the recommended rate increase for residential customers. On the next slide, you'll see that 9.4 has been taken to 0. And you'll see very soon that those cash reserves start to deplete just with the accumulating effect of not having that rate increase in this particular utility. And then soon, if we don't pull back on necessary capital projects, we start to take this below the line, which we obviously could not. And so We did do one more strategy that you can advance. And this essentially, this still has a declining effect, but we've started to pull out some of the key capital projects of this utility because we know first and foremost we've got to run the operations and we've got to perform the necessary maintenance. Capital is one of those key things that you don't want to defer because you're just deferring that for another event down the road. And essentially what this does, and it has the same effect on every utility, is you're pushing the decision off as instead of doing, say, a 9.4% residential rate increase here, next year you may be faced with nearly a 20% residential rate because this, these are based on cost of service approach. And we have a similar strategies laid out for every utility if you're interested.
Councilor Jameson.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
I will be brief, I promise, Councilor Jameson, but I just want to let the people of Sioux Falls know that in many cases, whether it be public works or health or parks, many of these fees have not been updated for years. And we're kind of in a catch-up mode at best. Also, folks, we're well below other cities across South Dakota and across the Midwest or similar-like cities. We're well below or at that average. Also, percentages are not a good way to look at increases, and Councilor Brown did an excellent job trying to explain that to others, that when you go from $1 to $1.25, it's a 25% increase. But when you look at it in terms of how much it's really going to cost the average family, it's not much. In some cases, as Mrs. Franklin just mentioned, we're not even covering the expenses of what we're incurring here in city government, and we need to do that in the spirit of making sure that we keep up. And then last but not least, folks, I guarantee you're getting one very, very good deal. You are. And the city council is going to look out for you. They are. They're not going to let us pull any wool over your eyes. I know they won't, especially not this council. And you should feel good about what you're getting. You're getting a good value for your dollar, and you should be aware of that. Hearing no other questions, and again, thank you, Mr. Cotter, for your time tonight. Councilor Jameson did move, and Councilor Entman did second that we would set a hearing date for the second reading for Monday, June 21st at 7 p.m. for all the items that we discussed here tonight. If there are no other further motions or comments, I'd love to have us vote on having that. Please vote yes if you are in favor, or please vote no if you're against.
Councilors Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That did pass 8-0. Is there a motion to set a hearing date and second reading for Monday, July 12th at 7 p.m. for item number 10?
So moved, Jameson.
Second, Anderson.
That has been motioned by Councilor Jameson, seconded by Anderson, Jr. Are there any, or please, if you'd read it, thank you.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving the release of a permanent drainage easement in Track 6B, Park South, in addition to the City of Sioux Falls in Section 32T101N-R49W of the 5th PM, Minnehaha County, South Dakota.
Good evening, Chad Heavey with the Engineering Division of Public Works. This drainage easement is located in the northwest quadrant of the intersection of I-229 and Minnesota Avenue. It was granted by plat to the City of Sioux Falls in May of 1978 for the construction and maintenance of drainage improvements. In 2006, the city relocated these improvements 125 feet to the west, and a new permanent storm sewer easement obtained from the current property owner. The city no longer has a need for this easement and is recommending its release.
Any questions for Chad? Hearing none, again, Councilor Jameson made the motion, was seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. Nor to have a hearing date and second reading for Monday, July 12th, 7 p.m. for item number 10. All those in favor, please vote yes. All those opposed, please vote no.
Councilors Brown?
Yes.
Intiman?
Yes.
Erpenbach? Yes. Jameson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thanks to all of you. That motion to prevail 8-0. The hearing date has been set. Now move on to number 11.
A resolution advising, giving consent, and approving the mayor's interim successors pursuant to Chapter 2.03 of the city's Home Rule Charter.
Is there a motion to adopt item number 11?
So moved, Aguilar.
Second, Erpenbach.
That has been motion to approve by Councilor Aguilar, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach.
Good evening, Bill O'Toole, Director of Human Resources for the City of Sioux Falls. This resolution is, in effect, adopting the interim mayor successor, both on the basis of the proposed order. And what it does is, in the event of a disaster or emergency, as defined in state statute, that if the unavailability of the mayor is present based on disability or temporary absence, that we ensure continuity of city services, and the mayor has drafted that executive order and does require council action for advice and consent.
Councilor Jameson, anything?
Bill, could you just tell us what those names are, who those names are, and which order they are?
The order is 1 through 4. The first one is the Director of Public Works, which is Mark Cotter. Number 2 is Director of Human Resources, which is myself. Number 3 is the Director of Parks and Recreation, Don Kearney. And number 4 is the Chief of Police, Doug Barthel.
To the people of Sioux Falls, Mayor Munson was so proud of his community. He never left. He never got sick. He was always here for you. I will do my best to be here for you, but in case I'm not, there are some good people here to back me up. But again, we should commend Mayor Munson for a man who just never was gone. But again, there has been a motion to adopt number 11. It was made by Councilor Aguilar, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. All those in favor, please vote yes. All those opposed, please vote no.
Councilors Brown?
Yes.
Intiman?
Yes.
Erpenbach? Yes. Jameson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thanks to all of you. That did pass 8-0. Item 12.
A resolution declaring it necessary to levy and levying a special front foot assessment fee for street maintenance and repair.
Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. A condition of Section 38-31 for the front foot assessment is that annually we recommend to pass a resolution so we can enact this assessment. And so we are not proposing an increase. It remains at $1 per front foot. And I'm here to answer any questions.
I made a mistake. There should have been a motion to adopt item 12 before any discussion. I truly apologize to the chair and to the co-chair of the City Council. Is there a motion to adopt item number 12?
So move, Anderson.
Second, Intiman.
It has been a motion by Councilor Anderson Jr., seconded by Councilor Entenmann. Would you want to say it all over again? No. Let's don't do that. Are there any other questions for Mr. Cotter?
Thank you.
Hearing none. Again, it was, why don't we just vote on that, please? All those in favor, please vote yes. All those opposed, please vote no.
Councilors Brown?
Yes.
Intiman?
Yes.
Erpenbach? Yes. Jameson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That motion did prevail 8-0. Is there a motion to set a hearing date and second reading for Monday, July 12th at 7 p.m. for items number 13 and 14?
So moved, Jameson.
Second, Brown.
It has been a motion to approve by Councilor Jameson, seconded by Councilor Brown.
Item 13, a proposed resolution vacating the public right-of-way on West 23rd Street from South Minnesota Avenue to South Spring Avenue.
Ms. Huey?
All right, I know it's late, but I'm just going to do a quick right-of-way vacation 101, so we all hopefully are, because I know the first time I heard vacation, I had a different connotation, but the process to vacate street or alley right-of-way in the city of Sioux Falls is regulated by South Dakota Codified Law 9-45. In addition to that law, engineering has developed a policy for this process that includes additional requirements so that when we come to the City Council, you can be assured that we've addressed all the neighborhood issues. The process begins with a petition signed by all the property owners that abut the right-of-way. The petition is submitted to engineering. It's reviewed by engineering. And we're looking for items such as access, utilities, dead-end streets and alleys, emergency response, and present and future transportation needs. Utility easements may or may not be retained. Although a neighborhood meeting is not required by state law, we do require one if the right-of-way to be vacated is improved and used by the public. We come to this body twice for a street vacation. The first time, as we are tonight, is to set the date for the public hearing, and the second time is for the public hearing. If the vacation is approved, the County Register of Deeds assigns ownership of the vacated right-of-way. And finally, it is the petitioner's responsibility to close the right-of-way to the traveling public. So on to item 13. This section of 23rd Street is improved. The petitioner is Jerry Larson of Medical X-Ray Center. He plans to remove the existing structures and expand the parking area. Utility easement will be retained, and the petitioner has complied with our right-of-way vacation policy and will be present at the public hearing to answer any of your questions. A neighborhood meeting was held on May 18th. No neighbors attended, and there has been no opposition to the proposed vacation. And engineering has no opposition to this vacation.
Any questions? Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Can we go back to the map that will show the different area here? Thank you. I just wanted to take a look at it a little bit harder.
The two buildings that front Minnesota Avenue, one has been removed, and the other one is a vacant. It used to be Medical X-Ray Center's office building, so that one is vacant. And the three residential homes, the plan is to move them off the land.
The parking lot to the west here on Spring Avenue,
Yes.
Is that also
That is
medical
the
X-rays?
church that's there.
That's the churches?
And I do understand that on Sundays, Mr. Larson lets the congregation park in his parking lot right there.
Okay.
And I think this practice will continue.
Councilor Liz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Huey, just to be clear here, half of the street would go to the property on the north and the other half would go to the owners on the south. Is that correct?
Typically, that is how it is done. If you ran into a situation where you had two different property owners and, 80 years ago, the north half dedicated all of the right-of-way, the 60 feet, the Register of Deeds would go back to those documents and assign the entire amount of vacated right-of-way to that property where it came from. But in this case, he owns both parcels. He'll get it all.
That was for the benefit of the new members more so than myself, so thank you for that.
We could have a separate discussion on how it's determined where it goes. But
The hour is late, Chad.
yes.
Ms. Huey, thank you so very much. There was a motion to set a hearing date in a second reading for Monday, July 12th, 7 p.m. for item 13. Now we'll move on to 14.
A proposed resolution vacating the public right-of-way on the north-south alley in Block 7, Bennett's First Edition, between the south property line of Lot 8, Block 7, Bennett's First Edition, and the south right-of-way line of West 11th Street.
This unimproved right-of-way is a portion of an alley south of 11th Street between Spring Avenue and Duluth Avenue. The petitioner is the City of Sioux Falls. If vacated, this parcel will be part of the redevelopment of this property into a multifamily mixed-use structure by St. Joseph Catholic Housing. A utility easement will not be retained. The petitioner has complied with our right-of-way vacation policy and will be present at the public hearing. A neighborhood meeting for the right-of-way vacation was not required, and engineering has no opposition to this vacation.
Seeing, or no other questions, or at least seeing none. It has been moved and seconded to set a hearing date and second reading for Monday, July 12th at 7 p.m. for items 13 and 14. All those in favor, please vote yes. All those opposed, please vote no.
Councilors Brown?
Yes.
Intiman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That motion has prevailed 8-0. The hearing date has been set. Mr. Cooper, did you have it in?
I apologize, Mayor. I just wanted, as a point of order, to correct a statement that I made regarding item 14 earlier this week on will the city recoup our costs. The city has invested just over $1 million in acquiring this property, the structures, the removal, the demolition, legal fees, all the contingencies that have gone into this. Right now, the sources and uses of funds that we've identified between the land transfer and grants would cover 60%, but we are working on additional grants that would ramp that up to 80%. So our goal by the time this is done is to recoup 80% as opposed to 100%. So I apologize for giving the wrong information earlier this week.
Does that change anybody's on number 14? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Folks, I think we're ready to go. It's been a good night for the city of Sioux Falls. Thanks to all of you. Councilor
Move to
James?
adjourn. Before we adjourn, I would just try to bring everybody's attention to the temperature in the room. I think we could probably manage a better control of that. We might need the help of the mayor. So I just want to make sure it wasn't me, and it wasn't me getting a little sick or something. But
Getting that age.
all right,
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to note that when we were doing number 11 there with your resolution, I was trying to imagine what type of natural calamity Mr. Cotter could precipitate that he might sit in your chair, but I could come up with nothing.
Kidnapping. For the folks, it's warm in here tonight. At least I thought it was me. So if you saw me doing this, thank you, Councilor Jameson. We will do something about it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Let's. Second, Anderson.
Thank you so very much. All those in favor, please vote yes. All those opposed, please vote no.
Councilors Brown?
Yes.
Intiman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That motion did prevail 8-0. We are adjourned. Thank you, Sioux Falls.